We'll call the meeting to order. This is City Commission meeting, Monday, November 27th, 2023 at 5:30 p.m. If you please rise for the invocation and the pledge. Heavenly Father, we ask that you watch over this group tonight, that you give us the wisdom to make good decisions for the city of Leesburg. We do that in your name. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, tonight we have no proclamations and no presentations. At this point, we'll move on to public comment. This section is reserved for members of the public to bring up matters of concern or opportunities for praise. Issues brought up will not be discussed in detail at this meeting. Issues will either be referred to the proper staff or will be scheduled for consideration at a future City Commission meeting. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. If you come to the mic, please give your name and address. Are there any public comments? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Evelyn Gould, and my address is 312 Nebraska Avenue, Leesburg, Florida. I apologize for that. On September 25th, I came before this board to express my concerns for how the city was weaponizing against the elderly and those of low socioeconomic status relative to code violations. I challenged this board to develop a plan that will empower its residents to increase their level of home ownership pride through financial assistance, education, and maybe even a partnership with some of the community's businesses. I strongly believe that this board can move this great city closer to the vision it has and bring about a more permanent change and eliminate blight in neighborhoods. When the people are more aware of the expectations and are given the necessary tools, change will happen. In the words of Theodore Roosevelt, people don't care how much you know until they really know how much you care. On another note, I also approached this board regarding my situation concerning the property located at 1138 East Main Street, a property that my husband and I have diligently worked on maintaining and paying back taxes on the property over the last 2 years. The owner has since passed away, and the family is not financially able to move forward with probate currently. We have invested much time, money, and sweat equity into the property, as well as I had mentioned paying the taxes for the last 2 years. We have worked continuously with code enforcement to clear the violations and continue in our endeavors and continue in commitment to in order to prevent any future penalties. In our waiting, the city has moved forward with foreclosing on the property with no one to defend it. Because of our investment, I had asked this board to come up with a resolution that is both honorable and reasonable relative to our endeavors. I'm asking you, please, once again, to reconsider a potential property trade. We are not a big corporation, nor are we a nonprofit government organization that sometimes monopolizes on these kinds of situations. We are simply individuals trusting in God with our hopes and dreams. I am a willing individual determined to put my hand to the plow and being an advocate for those that I have mentioned previously. I leave you with these 2 requests once again, that someone please reach out to me relative to possible solutions or programs for our residents and a resolution regarding the property at 1138 East Main Street. Please note that Proverbs 29:2 states the following, that when the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice, but when the wicked bear it root, the people mourn. I have faith that this commission will make a decision that speaks volumes about its members to the community. Thank you for your time and your consideration today.
Any other public comment?
Do you want a quick little report on that?
Yeah, that would be good. Thank you.
Yeah, I've talked with Mrs. Gould. Pronounce it correctly? Yes. Yeah, Mrs. Gould a couple of times. And the situation is certainly unfortunate. And at this time, the city's kind of not in the driver's seat on this situation. I encourage Mrs. Gould to write the letter that you received, as well as come and speak before you to get some feedback and kind of push this one way or another. So in short, the situation is that Ms. Gould had, I would say, a handshake agreement with the previous owner of the home. that if she did certain things to the home, cut the grass, maintain it, she paid the taxes, they would work out a deal to sell the house directly to her. Her handshake agreement with the owner fell through because the owner passed away. So that house went into probate. And so she can't get a deal with the current owners of the house because it's in probate. And I think the multiple family members now own the house, which is making it difficult for Mrs. Glaude to get a deal. While all that's been going on, the house has code enforcement issues. Grass, I think some windows are broken and those type of things. But we are in the city is, where if those liens don't get paid, then ultimately we would foreclose it. I believe Grant is working on the foreclosure.
Yeah, there is a case pending on that property right now. The defendant has not been served. The last attempt at service, I think, was in West Virginia or Maryland, somewhere up northeast.
So that's
it's trying to track down.
I know. So we're probably 4 to 6 months from the potential ending of a foreclosure process. But the long story short is, pre the city foreclosing on this property, we're really not in a position to do anything to the property because we don't have ownership of it. So we can't make a deal with Mrs. Glaude and say, hey, we'll sell this property to you. And it's probably inappropriate for us to say, hey, we'll sell this property to you or give this property to you before we would foreclose on it. So the natural process for us of the code enforcement process has to be remedied. And there could be a multitude of things that would interrupt that. It gets through probate, the kids decide they sell it, a million things. My suggestion to you would be is, give me feedback. If you want to talk with Mrs. Glaude, I'm happy to do that. Maybe to set something up conditionally. She has spent money, her own money, out of her pocket. Now, that's not necessarily the city's fault. Perhaps, a value of the property less what she put into it. But again, all those things are premature until the city would actually own the house. I would leave the report at that. I do feel for Mrs. Glaude. She's obviously worked in good faith with the owner, and then she, victim of a circumstance. But in the real estate world, we're all victim to those circumstances, and unfortunately, things happen.
Yeah, just tying onto that, as Al said, right now the city's position is essentially that of a lien holder, a judgment creditor or someone like that. Until the city forecloses the lien and there's a sale at the courthouse, then the city would not be a title holder of the property. So right now the city is almost like a lender, the same position that a lender would be in as far as title or ownership rights to the property are concerned. Right now, like I said, service is out, so the defendant has not been served yet. So the case can't move forward until the defendant is served. Probably what will happen is, unless the personal representative, I don't know that we found a probate case. If there's a probate case open, we might be able to get the personal representative, but it might be heading down the pathway of having to get another attorney involved, have them appointed to be a guardian by the court to oversee what's going on with the case, and sort of have a substitute service done that way. Constructive service of process is probably the process we'll end up going with in the long run, given the service trouble to this point. But then once that happens, then you have your answer time period. We're not sure what the various interest holders might have to say at this point. So the city's position right now is essentially that there's a code enforcement fine that's been recorded, and then proceeding with the foreclosure case on that fine. But until that case is concluded, the city doesn't really have any rights with respect to the property. Then the city could release the lien if the city wanted to do that for some reason. But, that's basically it at this point.
Well, first of all, I feel bad for you. It is a very unusual situation. I have a banking and a real estate background, so I do understand all the issues. Is there a mortgage on the property?
I don't think there is a mortgage.
Okay. Well, so the basis of that question is, I guess I would be willing to enter into an agreement with her upon owning it. We may not own it. I mean, we could be outbid at the courthouse steps, but if we took title, I would be willing to, and I'd support entering into an agreement to sell it to her for her cost. You know, I mean, all my cost. You know, I mean, just to do the right thing and get it off our
You're
books.
like a fair market value minus what she has into it.
I mean, because of circumstances. I mean, maybe I'm being too charitable here, but I mean, she worked on it for ahead of time.
I think the.
How much is this house worth? Is this
I don't know, and I don't know how much she has into it. But I think the reasonable formula would be market value of the house minus what she has into it.
Okay.
And can we make a deal like that? Would that be a problem for foreclosing on it?
No, I mean, I don't believe so. I mean, again, it all assumes that the city prevails in the foreclosure case.
And I wanted to be sure she understands that.
I think we could do a conditional.
No, if Grant thinks a conditional type of if Grant thinks a conditional type arrangement that if these things happen, then we'll do this. I think that's reasonable.
Yeah, and I wasn't trying to overly complicate it. We just have a person who's trying to do all the right things here. It sounds like the family doesn't care. They're not taking care of it or responding.
Is it probate or is it the?
I don't know. We haven't found a probate at this point.
It's just the kids, the owners. So ownership of the house, and you don't know the title situation. You don't know if there is another lien on it.
I don't think there is. I think that the only lien right now is the code.
Is the code liens?
Yeah.
So there could be clear title, but it's going to be so that it's clearly entitled to the kids who don't want to make a deal with that. It sounds like the kids don't want to live up to the handshake agreement that the parent had.
So either they get served or they're constructively served. If they're served, then we might have somebody we could engage as far as perhaps even them agreeing to sign over title to the city. And then, we could strike a deal.
I would say if a majority just from the nod of the heads, I would say a conditional type of arrangement, less fair market value, and so let me get with Grant.
Yeah,
let me see how that works. I can bring back some numbers to you in the form of an agreement, and then I'll get with Ms. Cloud and get back to you all.
Okay.
Any other public comment? All right. We'll move on to the consent agenda. Routine items are placed on the consent agenda to expedite the meeting. If the commission or staff wish to discuss any item, the procedure is as follows. Number one, pull the item or items from the consent agenda. 2, vote on the remaining items with 1 roll call vote. 3, discuss each pulled item and vote by roll call. Are there any items anyone would like to pull?
5C1 and 5C4.
5C1, 5C4, anything else?
I'm going to make a motion to approve all the remaining items.
Second.
Roll call?
Commissioner Connell?
Yes.
Commissioner Eastman?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Berry? Yes. Mayor Burry?
Yes. Would someone please introduce 5C1?
I'll introduce and ask to be read by title only.
Resolution of the City Commission of the City of Leesburg, Florida, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute an agreement of purchase and sale with Blue Rock Development, LLC, pertaining to 10.4 acres within parcel ID 15-19-25-0003-000-00500 and an airport parcel covenant restricting residential use, and a FAA letter of release for sale of surplus property and providing an effective date.
Move for approval.
Second.
Discussion.
I pulled this. I am in favor of this. I just wanted to add some possible restrictions to it, and I talked to Al about it. Restrictions of what we don't want built there. So no Dollar Generals, no car washes, and no storage facilities, if we can add that.
We have some of those.
So, and I'll be bringing some other stuff up under my closing comments as well.
Yeah, and just a note on this too. So I don't remember what the due diligence period of this is, but I would think part of that due diligence period is we're going to need to rezone it before we close. And so when we do the PUD, it's going to be some type of C3 commercial PUD. So that's where these restrictions would be embedded in the PUD. And I'm looking at the agent he's not jumping out of his chair, and what's left of his hair is not on fire. So so it sounds like the guy won't have issue with the additional restrictions. But typically, so those are things like once I think it's good to put these in the sale contract so that the buyer knows what he's getting into. But then remember that once that sale contract is done and closed, that's a dead agreement. But when you do your zoning and your PUD stuff before we close on this, that's where these restrictions will live on in perpetuity.
And my only comment is I guess I'm not thrilled to change the deal on a buyer, but I see Dan in the audience. Maybe Dan can make comment on this. I don't want to run this buyer off. You may need to come to the podium if you want.
Dan Tatro, I'm the agent working on the deal for the city. On the no Dollar General, no car wash, that has not been discussed with the buyer at all at this point. The main restriction that was in there is no residential, which has already been drafted. So if we are going to throw that in the PUD in some capacity, we just need to talk to the buyer about it.
Yeah, and repeat myself, I guess we should, if I feel like we should have marketed it that way, I wouldn't want that to be a deal breaker. That's just my opinion.
It's going to have to be rezoned, guys. It's going to have to be rezoned, lot split done. And then after the one-time lot split, there's going to have to be a plat done for any.
And the buyer may not care about this, I guess.
And Commissioner Reisman talked to me about this earlier. I mean, one way or another, these restrictions are going to get thrown out. So if the buyer squawks, it's probably better for him to squawk now than later when you start doing the PUD. So we'll know pretty soon. And if it's deal breaker and Dan calls back and his hair does catch on fire, we'll come back and revisit the sales contract. But I think if you're going to head down that way and add those restrictions, might as well get them out on the table now. And your concerns will get flushed out, Commissioner Peterson, and so on the opposite end, so will Commissioner Reisman's during the due diligence period. I just thought it was a reasonable thing to put that out there this evening. We signed the agreement on his part. He has opportunity to back out. And we'll save it. If we'll be back to you if there's heartburn over this.
Okay, let me ask one question. I know you say no Dollar General, but isn't there like Family Dollar and Dollar Tree and Dollar this, dollar,
You could literally
you're
take
talking about a general kind of store, not just.
I think
so how do you,
You could literally take a clause out of a Dollar General lease where they restrict all other dollar stores.
Yeah, and I don't know.
We just need to find the right wording.
The wording comes from Grant, but that would be my concern with,
Not limited to one specific, the broader category.
of whatever you call those things.
What do you think the buyer's reaction will be? I know it's not a fair question, but.
Tough to answer.
Okay, I understand.
Yeah, I'm not sure. There's only so much retail that can be done anymore, guys. I mean, unfortunately, it just depends. I'm not sure. I'd have to talk to him about it.
I mean, it's a hot corner. I want it to look good.
Yeah.
But the guy's paying above our appraisal. Everything looks good. I don't want to lose this buyer over these type of restrictions. I'm repeating myself again. I feel like we should have marketed it that way. And that should have come from us. I mean, not from Dan. So I just don't want to lose this buyer.
I just have to talk to him. He's a pretty reasonable guy. We'll see what he says. Okay.
So would we rather have an amendment to this motion with those factors, or would we rather have a table this until the next meeting so Danny can talk to his
Did you
buyer?
put that out there as a motion to amend it with those restrictions?
Well, we'd have.
I don't think there was a motion
Officially,
to
we have not
amend
done
at
that,
this
but we
point.
would have to.
On the restrictions, guys, I mean, what are we talking about exactly? That's something I got to have some pretty good understanding of.
No car wash. I think what Commissioner Reisman is going to is no car washes, no storage, and no Dollar General type stores.
No climate-controlled enclosed storage?
That's how I would take the motion.
That's how I would do it.
If they did that, it would probably be on the side street anyway. It's not
Yeah,
gonna
that would be in the
main
back on the
road.
side street. You have to look at this property from the front backwards, guys. You can't look at it from the
You probably
front.
have, what, 2 parcels on the
Yeah.
highway, and then the
Yes.
long rectangular.
Yes, because it goes back and it kind of goes like this. I tell, very respectfully, what I always tell people is when you're looking at a deep piece of property like that that's going to be nothing but commercial, you have to look at the back first before you look at the front, because the back is always the hardest part to deal with. I think climate-controlled enclosed storage is not bad. They're nice-looking buildings. But I'm just thinking out loud, but of course, we'll do whatever you guys would like to do. Yep.
Well, we took away residential, which I understand. I don't need these restrictions as long as we just make it look good. I mean, we have a Wawa at the corner at Griffin and 27441 with a car wash as part of a Wawa. If a Wawa came in at the corner and wanted to add a car wash alongside of it, I would be fine with that. I would hate to run them off. I don't know whether the commissioner's staying.
We have car washes every quarter mile in Leesburg.
Yeah, but I don't think that's our role. I think that's kind of like a big brother role. Like we're kind of overstepping our boundaries a little bit.
We can restrict those things.
Well, we can, but I mean, I guess I'm more of a free market guy. I wouldn't put a car wash there. There is a couple down the road, but it is a free market.
It's also land that we own, and we can say we can put those restrictions on there. So I get what you're saying.
So we have a resolution with some discussion.
Well, I think so. I think you have options. If the commissioner is going to, Commissioner Reisman wants to put that in the sales contract as a contingency, then he can make a motion to amend the contract as such, and he can put the motion forth. You can second and vote on it. If he doesn't do that, the next step for this is to go to the due diligence period, which will include the zoning issues, so we can bring those issues up and let Mr. Tatro flush those issues out, and you'll have we'll be back to you if at PUD time you'll see in the PUD if those things are restricted, they're restricted. That means the developer agreed to it. If they're not in the PUD, that means he doesn't agree for it, and you could vote down the rezoning then if you feel that strongly about restricting or not restricting those things. And then if you turn down the rezoning, he's obviously going to then walk away from the deal, and we're not going to close, which is pursuant to the contract that's on the table.
I'm going to point out one other item, too, I believe, and Tracy could confirm if I'm correct or incorrect. The FAA stated no residential. No problem.
Residential.
All right. But they literally stated, if I'm correct, that you could put industrial there for all they care. You could put commercial there. Well, we're basically limiting it to just commercial, which is fine. But we need to be somewhat open-minded to some of the uses for a developer to come in and pay the amount of money that they're going to pay and use all of the property that they're going to use.
Can I ask Dan Miller a question? If you were putting this discussion aside, if you were to put together a PUD on this property, would you put these kind of restrictions in there?
No, sir. Generally not. Now,
That's what I thought the answer would be.
however, as Commissioner Reisman stated, the city can put in those
No, I understand that fully. I was just saying, I was trying to see what's kind of standard procedure for your PUDs around town.
Yeah, we do have a lot of car washes. That's
Yeah, and with respect to car wash, and I know on a staff level we've had this conversation, and you, Commissioner Peterson, you bring up a good word too about car washes, because sometimes you get a Wawa or you get the 7-Eleven, they have a car wash. I would underline that to be a stand-alone car wash. We've got, I think, 3 in town. There's a new one on 441. Pretty much almost right near this parcel. There's the new one on 27. And standalone car washes, too, I think also if you're going to be picky about some commercial activities where you would potentially put a moratorium on it, where if you asked Dan specifically that question, Dan Miller, I think if you said, do you want standalone car washes anymore, then that answer would be no. And then I think the way that you could legally do that, and Grant can chime in here, is you can specifically tie that back to our CUP. Standalone car washes are a water hog. We have probably per capita enough of those standalone car washes within our city limits, and they're a burden on our CUP. And then St. John's would probably like to see that, and that might even help us get our CUP extended in the future. So I think with respect to car wash, it's standalone car washes. And then you're going to have Dan answer that question different.
Well, I didn't mean to put Dan on the spot. I mean, that was a tough question when he's got two commissioners up here. I was actually wanting to learn what was standard, in your PUDs. But well, yeah, my last comment on the car wash. Yeah, we've had some new ones come around town, but they're knocking out some old, wore-out car washes. So the free market is working.
I mean, if the concern's on how it's going to look, I mean, I don't know why it couldn't be addressed in the PUD for aesthetics, for exterior, architectural reviews of how these buildings are going to look. If how it's going to look is concerned, I mean, that can be addressed, not just totally exclude something because you don't like the way it may look somewhere else. I mean, we can address it through the PUD.
Dan, I'd like to ask Tatum, you have no idea what could possibly be being built? Nothing has been discussed?
It's going to be commercial.
But
no. He's waiting to see where we are. Then he'll have to get with Mr. Miller and Tracy and start presenting some plans on what he's thinking and what he wants to do. He understands the no residential, no problem. Didn't have a problem with that. I think when we start limiting the C3 uses, as I like to call them, I just don't know. I'd have to talk to him and see what he says.
Hold off until the PUD?
Well, right now, it's just
Contract.
Right now, yeah.
right. I have no motion in front of me. We're just discussing whether we're going to sell it or not. And without a motion, I'm going to.
I'll make a motion to approve the contract as presented.
I'll second.
I mean, that's already on the table.
I'll just bring it up to the PUD.
There you go. Okay, so no more discussion? Roll call.
Commissioner Eastman?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Berry?
Yes.
Commissioner Connell?
Yes.
Mayor Burry?
Yes. Can someone please introduce 5C4?
Just ask me by my title only.
Resolution of the City Commission of the City of Leesburg, Florida, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute a management services agreement with Fascia Bella, Inc. to manage Lakefront TV and providing an effective date.
Move for approval.
Second.
I just pulled this. I'm going to vote yes, but I just asked see if staff can look into the analytics for Lakefront TV versus the dollar spent versus the return on it. So I had talked to Al about it. So
Give me that again.
the analytics for Lakefront TV, what's our return on the money we're spending on it? So
Okay. And what, I mean, how is that judged by viewership? I mean, I don't know how we would even.
I take the commissioner's comment as direction to bring you back some type of analytics on how we figure out if we're getting our bang for a buck at Lakefront TV. In the interim, I think you said you were voting for it, right?
Yeah.
Did I hear you say that? So until until then, we work under the Fascia Bella contract, and if you pending your approval this evening, it's business as described in the contract that's in your packet.
Any more discussion? Okay, roll call.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Berry?
Yes.
Commissioner Connell?
Yes.
Commissioner Eastman?
yes.
Mayor Burry?
Yes. Okay, moving on to public hearings and non-routine items. Would someone please, under second reading of ordinances, introduce items 1, 2, and 3?
Introduce the title only.
6A1, an ordinance of the City of Leesburg, Florida, annexing certain real property consisting of approximately 4.9 plus minus acres, being generally located southwest of Professional Drive and south of U.S. Highway 441, lying in Section 21, Township 19 South, Range 25 East, Lake County, Florida. Provided that said property so annexed shall be liable for its proportionate share of the existing and future indebtedness of said city. Providing that such annexed property shall be subject to all laws and ordinances of said city, as if all such territory had been a part of the city of Leesburg at the time of passage and approval of said laws and ordinances, providing that such annexed territory shall be placed in City Commission District 5 and providing an effective date. 6A2, an ordinance amending the future land use map of the comprehensive plan of the city of Leesburg, changing the future land use map designation of certain property containing 4.9 plus minus acres from Lake County urban low density to City of Leesburg general commercial for property generally located southwest of Professional Drive and south of U.S. Highway 441, lying in Section 21, Township 19 South, Range 25 East, Lake County, Florida, and providing an effective date. 6A3, an ordinance of the City of Leesburg, Florida, changing the zoning on approximately 4.9 plus minus acres from Lake County LM Light Industrial to City of Leesburg SPUD Small Planned Unit Development to allow for commercial and light industrial uses for a property generally located southwest of Professional Drive and south of U.S. Highway 441, lying in Section 21, Township 19 South, Range 25 East, Lake County, Florida, and providing an effective date.
Move for approval.
Second.
Discussion. Maybe we could have Dan come up and give us an overview.
And Mr. Mayor, I'm going to go ahead and get everybody sworn in on this. Yes, sir. All good. No. All right. So if all city staff members, applicant, and anyone in the audience who plans to present any evidence on item 6A3, electrical works rezoning, if you would please stand and raise your right hand so you can be sworn in. All right. Do you swear or affirm that all testimony you'll give tonight will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Grant.
Thank you, sir. Dan Miller, Planning and Zoning. This is a 4.9 plus or minus acre annexation comp plan and rezoning. There's a current business on there known as Electrical Works. They've been there for a number of years. They plan on staying. We take it from Lake County urban low density to City of Leesburg general commercial, and from Lake County light industrial to zoning to City of Leesburg small plan unit development. Basically, we just needed to put some uses in here for the future. Right now, it's Electrical Works. They plan to stay there, but if they were to move at some point, as all businesses do, what could we put in there? So we came up with general medical offices, daycare, personal services like hair and nails, light industrial. That includes the current use, which is, of course, the Electrical Works storage and warehouse. As you can see, it's off of 441, so it's not easy to see from the highway. Of course, the prohibited uses are the typical internet cafes, tattoo parlors, check cashing stores, adult uses, those kind of things. We can add car washes if you like, but nobody's going to drive back that far.
It's got a Dollar General already.
It's already got the Dollar General, so. I believe Mr. Brett Jones is here.
Brett couldn't make it this evening. He called me earlier today.
Okay, thanks. And but Mr. Brett Jones of Brett Jones PA is their representative. It's been through first reading, was approved at Planning Commission as well.
Dan, would you recommend approving anything going on this piece of property that's going to have a high volume of traffic with the access issue?
It's somewhat of an access issue. When you come in, you can see their sign plus the Dollar General sign right there, and the road rolls directly more or less south.
Decel or turn lane to get there?
I believe there is. I'd have to, off the top of my head, I cannot remember.
I don't think there is.
Is there not one?
I don't either.
I mean, I'd be concerned with any type of commercial going in down there. It's going to have a high volume of traffic.
Anything that would be high volume, anything that would change the current use would have to go through Development Review Committee. And anything that goes through Development Review Committee also is sent to Lake County Public Works. So that's where their engineering road department would be able to say, okay, now you've got to add a turn lane. So if it stays Electrical Works, it'll stay as it is. But anything that comes up that's relatively high volume, and that's not something I could give you the answer to because I don't know what that would actually
be.
be.
If he's wanting a small unit development on, he wants to keep his options open.
He does.
And so what's being proposed? What would that allow on there?
We had medical offices, general offices, those kind of things, which are already out there. There's a medical office there for Dr. I forget her name, just sleep studies doctor. Meredith Kirsty's attorney office is out there. There used to be a restaurant, and I forget the famous restaurant everybody knew.
Not Dead River, Vic's Embers.
Vic's Embers. And so there's not much that's going to be high traffic that's going to want to be that far off the road.
Well, that would be my concern, because
Yes, sir.
I've been in and out of that site, and it's not great to get in or get out of.
In addition, much of the southern part of that area is flood zone and wetlands. So it limits the amount of land that can be used anyway. It does, however, fill up a hole in the city limits gap. So we feel like we put together a group of uses that generally aren't going to be high traffic. And the current use, Electrical Works, has no plans that I'm aware of to move out of it for any time soon anyway. But we always encourage anybody who's doing something like this, let's look at what's 10, 20 years from now, so that when you go to market it, you can sell it, there'll be a good use goes back into it, and you don't have to come back for a rezoning.
Now, everything around this property is C3.
Yes, sir.
You're putting this in a PUD because of the light industrial use?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
We didn't want to put a straight industrial use back there.
Okay.
And the petitioner is not here.
I don't believe so.
All right. Any comments from the public regarding this issue? Any more discussion from the commissioners? Any other questions? All right, then we need to vote. Let's hold roll call one by one.
Commissioner Berry?
This
Yes.
is on 6A1, correct? Yes.
Commissioner Connell?
Yes.
Commissioner Eastman?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Mayor Burry?
Yes. We'll have a roll call on 6A2.
Does it need a separate motion?
We've already introduced, I thought.
I don't think we had a motion on that one.
No,
Yeah.
just did the first one.
Yeah, I think we just did the first one. So a motion on the second.
Make a motion to
Yes, sir.
approve 6A2.
Second.
We've had discussion, so roll call.
Commissioner Connell?
Yes.
Commissioner Eastman?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Berry?
Yes.
Mayor Burry?
Yes.
Make a motion to approve 6A3.
Second.
Roll call.
Commissioner Eastman?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Berry?
Yes.
Commissioner Connell?
Yes.
Mayor Burry?
Yes. Will someone please introduce 6A4?
I'll introduce 6A4 to be read by title only.
An ordinance of the City of Leesburg, Florida, amending the boundaries of the Terra Oaks Community Development District established pursuant to Ordinance 21-17, providing a severability clause, addressing conflicts, and providing an effective date.
Move for approval.
Second.
Discussion. Come on, Dan.
This is a revision to the Community Development District for Terra Oaks. It's an existing community development district that makes up part of the Terra Oaks development. There we go on the map. The change is requested to take the original 194 acres that this encompasses, remove 89 acres, and add back 85. So you have a net change of approximately 4.73, I think it is. It's just a net change of about 4 acres in there. As you are aware, CDDs are a special form of district for taxation for communities that allow them to build roads, bridges, transit shelters, conservation, things of that nature. Has no zoning or police powers, and it's basically just an adjustment. The original owners, there were 2 original owners on the Terra Oaks, and one of them passed away. So it falls to the families, and the families are saying, well, I want to be in the development business, and the other side of the family is saying, I'm not. So they're having to make some adjustments. That's the long and short of the story. Mr. Jared Earlywine from Tallahassee, the Kutak Rock law firm, is here for additional questions or concerns.
So the green is coming in, the yellow's going out? Was that the,
Not quite.
or the vice versa?
That is,
Green is coming in and the yellow's going out.
Okay,
Yeah, that's better. Yeah.
okay. That's,
Just to align it with the ownership interest is all it is.
so it's a net change of 4.7 plus or minus acres is all it is.
questions from Commissioners?
No, I think I'm okay.
Any public questions or comments? Roll call.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Berry?
Yes.
Commissioner Connell?
Yes.
Commissioner Reisman?
Yes.
Mayor Burry?
Yes. Someone please introduce under first readings 6B1.
I'll introduce 6B1 to be read by title only.
An ordinance of the City of Leesburg, Florida, changing the zoning on approximately 135 plus minus acres from City of Leesburg RE1 Estate Density Residential to City of Leesburg PUD Planned Unit Development to allow for single-family residential development for property generally located south of Florida Turnpike and east of County Road 33, lying in sections 27 and 34, Township 20 South, Range 24 East, Lake County, Florida, and providing an effective date.
So do we need first reading, so we don't need a motion for approval, but do we
No, this is not a comprehensive plan change. This is just a rezoning, so there would not be any state involvement with this.
Right, so does anyone have questions they want to ask the developer on this? Everybody good with that? Any public comment on this? Okay. We need well, we're not going to do a roll call because we're not voting. This will come back before us December the 11th for a second reading. Would someone please introduce 6B2?
I'll introduce 6B2 to be read by title only.
An ordinance amending the future land use map of a comprehensive plan of the City of Leesburg, changing the future land use map designation of certain property containing approximately 36.96 plus minus acres from neighborhood mixed use to general commercial for a property generally located east of the Florida Turnpike and south of County Road 470, lying in Section 17, Township 20 South, Range 24 East, Lake County, Florida, and providing an effective date.
This again is a first reading. Does anybody have any questions for Dan? Everybody satisfied? Dan does have a...
Wanted to make one comment, Mr. Mayor. In writing up this PUD, we were supposed to add hotel into the permitted uses, and the way the PUD was written, that was the intent. But when you look at the prohibited uses, if we don't call hotel out as a permitted use, then it's automatically prohibited. So I wanted to, with your permission, add the word hotel as a permitted use.
Any objections from anyone?
Is that all right?
You have the consensus, yes.
Thank you, sir.
Anything on the property now, Dan?
Sir?
Is there anything on the property now?
Nothing right now.
Yeah, this piece of property is basically the southeast corner of the Turnpike and 470.
Yes.
Correct?
Correct.
So,
Right across the street from the 2400 and
yes. So
97
hotel
new
makes
houses.
sense. All right. This again will be before us for a second reading on December the 11th. Would anyone like to introduce 6B3, please?
I'll introduce 6B3 to be read by title only.
An ordinance of the City of Leesburg, Florida, changing the zoning on approximately 36.96 plus minus acres from PUD to PUD Planned Unit Development to allow for commercial and multifamily residential uses for a property generally located east of the Florida Turnpike and south of County Road 470, lying in Section 17, Township 20 South, Range 24 East, Lake County, Florida, and providing an effective date.
Once again, are there any comments from commissioners, or would you like to speak to Dan regarding this? All right, nothing there. This will be heard at a second meeting, our first meeting, December 12/11, as the others. Moving on to non-routine items, we have none. Informational reports, we have none. City attorney items.
No items this evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
And then we got city manager items.
be as brief or as detailed as you want. As you know, we've been working with the mall, Lake Square Promenade is their official name, to get the repayment of unpaid utilities back to the city. To be brief on the topic, we're this close to bringing a formal agreement to you, and there's two potential agreements that will be before you. The first one, as we've discussed, is a remake of the sewer billing that's specifically for the mall. Their billing has looked typically like a typical Class 1 or Class 3 use bill plus a monthly use charge based on water consumption. Since the ownership of Lake Square Promenade, they've protested that approach, and the city has had that approach since the mall was built. But essentially, how that works is every unit in the mall, which is somewhere around 80 plus including the pad sites being the outside pads to those, which would be Ichiban, Wendy's, DeBank, and Dunkin' Donuts. Those are the 4 pad sites. Those are all Class 3 commercial uses. But the individual units inside the mall, whether it's the food court, the movie theater, the arcade, the bowling alley, the Foot Locker, whatever store in there has had a base use charge, and many of those facilities in the mall proper, as I call it, really don't consume or have a discharge that's equal to a Class 1 or Class 3. So the heartbeat of that new sewer rate is to give the mall an equitable, if you will, sewer rate at your prerogative, understanding that, yeah, maybe the ways of the past weren't correct, not that they weren't proper, but just this is a more reasonable, I'm using my words carefully here, because this is definitely your prerogative to do. But having done that and coming up with a different method to bill them utilities has gotten them all to start paying up on some of their delinquent charges. Since July, they've paid about $70,000 back to the city. And if you agree, and I think you do need to hold this sewer rate as incentive to make them pay. And if they don't agree to pay, then you shouldn't do this incentive. So having said that, with the incentive included, the mall is this close to inking the deal that will be before you on payback of the utility bills over a 36-month time period. So that would equal a repayment of about $230,000. That's less the $70,000 that they've already paid. So it's it's almost $6,100 a month for 36 months, plus their continued utilities. And then if they would come to the table and approve the payback agreement, then I would ask that you do the sewer rate agreement with them. I will formalize those things. I've been working on Grant with the verbiage of the rate as well as the agreement. I believe the mall representation will sign that before December 11th. That doesn't make you do anything, but it shows you that you have a willing partner there. And then on the 11th, hopefully you guys can decide whether you want to move forward with that structure. It's ostensibly the same structure I've talked to you now about since the beginning of the year. I won't make any excuses for them all or encourage you to vote one way or another, but I think we're pretty close to a resolution on that path, and hopefully on the 11th it will be before you. If it's not, then I'll be before you probably seeking direction on giving me order to cut them all off.
I know we talked about it. It's just been a while. Are they getting a special rate? Are we negotiating a special rate, or is this an issue more where the mall's under 1 meter? I guess which are separate questions.
I'll break this all down in a more detailed presentation.
I mean, I thought this all started because of COVID. With COVID, we gave them relief.
We gave everybody relief.
Right.
Okay, and that was a decision that was made by the city commission.
Okay, right. So
we gave everybody relief, and we said that you did not have to, we did not say you did not have to pay your bills,
You can
but we
tack
gave
it on.
everybody relief by saying we wouldn't turn you off.
So it's added to their
That
bill
was
later.
that was in resolution form. We did that, and post-COVID, I don't think we officially passed a resolution that said game off, but we just said you need to start paying. Pretty much everybody since COVID, but for the mall, has repaid, and I'm not using the word delinquent, unpaid utility bills. So everybody but the mall is pretty much all paid up.
So, and I apologize. I know we've talked about this a couple of times. So what exactly is he disputing with the city right now? I mean, we calculate our wastewater sewer on their water usage. I mean, I guess my question, are we getting thrown in the middle of like all his different tenants? I mean, that's not our problem.
That's part of his.
Well, to me, that's not our problem.
That I agree.
Okay.
I agree.
That's where I'm going with all this questioning.
I agree, and that is part of his dragging feet.
Okay. No, thank you for that. We've talked about it before. It's just been a while, and when you kind of went over it again, it sounded more
Hopefully on the 11th, I'll give you a layout of the mall, the master meters, how things flow. It's all intertwined, and it's pretty complex, but yet once you unwind it, it becomes pretty simple.
So when they built the mall, they made a decision to put it on 1 meter. Somebody at a point in time. I guess I'm trying to help you out, saying it's not our problem, the metering. I'll let you have your fun with it, Al.
Yes and no is the answer to that. Yes, that's how the mall was designed, but inherent to metering, there were several components of the breakdown where the city continued to charge the mall for wastewater discharge when maybe we shouldn't have. Okay. And I will explain that.
Okay. That's a whole different animal. Okay, now it's all coming back to me now. Thank you.
My only comment on this is I want a deal done before the year's over.
I do too.
I really want to stress to this body and also to our partner at the mall that we need a deal done.
And on that note, I'm very hopeful that by the 11th that deal will be before you. And I honestly think it's reasonable on both sides. And if that deal's not before you, then I think we need to take a totally different, harder stance.
Okay.
I'll echo those comments because I don't think we would have kept anyone else's power on this long without payment in full.
Any other comments?
That's all I have for you.
Okay, ma'am. Roll call.
Commissioner Peterson?
Nothing tonight.
Commissioner Berry?
Nothing tonight.
Commissioner Connell?
Nothing.
Commissioner Reisman?
I'll bring it up, but I know it's a sore subject already. How would the commission feel about putting a moratorium on standalone car washes in the city limits? I know staff has thought about this as well.
Are you meaning newly built?
Newly built.
Newly built that are coming. Okay.
Economically, if someone wants to build a car wash, I think they should have the right. I'm kind of with Peterson. I'm a free market guy that I don't understand how they all, I don't know the last time I washed a car, but, that's me. But I don't think that we exist in a position
We put restrictions on properties all the time.
I'm sorry?
What they can and cannot build. Like, you can't put a tattoo parlor, you can't put a cash advance place, so if AmScott wanted to come in,
Al gets my attention with the CUP, but like I said earlier, I'll take the one, well, I don't want to recognize properties, but I'm seeing new ones built, and I'm going to bet you that some of these old, wore-out car washes are going to be redeveloped into another site, so I feel like maybe that's a positive for the city.
Earlier in the evening, City Manager Minner stated about the consumptive use permit and how car washes use a lot of water. He and I had a conversation a couple of months ago in talking about this because we do have a lot of car washes for a city of this size. The one thing I was going to ask, and I have not had much of a chance to talk to Al, so I hate to throw it out there, but we could do a code amendment that requires requires a conditional use permit for any car wash. or something else in the code. Now, what that is yet, I don't know. I haven't had a chance to sit and think about it, but if we require a conditional use permit, then we can also require some form of study or something about the amount of water, and the Planning Commission could turn it down or approve it.
Yeah, so just for clarification for you all, it's just for the new commissioners on board, conditional use permits come right to the city commission. So therefore, Dan's suggestion is a conditional use permit. So that means the city commission would say yes or no to each and every standalone car wash that would come.
That would be the planning commission.
That's a good compromise.
I like that. I was going to, excuse me, I like that too. I was going to toss out special exception would be another option that's sort of in a similar vein to a conditional use. Yeah, exactly. Something that just sort of allows you to kind of take it on a case-by-case basis. And that's something that you can come up with through a moratorium as well. You know, the idea of the moratorium is to take a look at this type of use and how do you want to address that type of use in the code. So the result of the moratorium might be we have more than we need to restrict these. It may be we need them in a certain area. It may be we need to limit them through conditional use permit. So you could sort of use a moratorium to kind of take a look at how you would want to address that and kind of freeze things in the interim while everybody figures that out. Or, again, you could make a code change and just change it to a conditional use or a special exception, and then and special exceptions too, some of them have additional criteria in the code that each of them have to meet. So if you're a standalone car wash, you might have subcategory A, B, and C, where you need to have these certain things with your development in order to be compliant with the general conditions or of the special exception.
Within Chapter 25, there's a section that's additional standards for specific uses, daycares, for example, or additional small houses, additional dwelling units, accessory dwelling units that you might have in a neighborhood. There are sections in the code. We could write something up for car washes that requires certain processes and steps to go through, bring that, work with the city manager, require a conditional use permit, require a water study, require certain things. And that might achieve what Commissioner Reisman is looking for.
I know of other places where they're conditional uses only, and so it's certainly something that other cities have looked at doing with standalone car washes.
Well, Brad, if you did conditional use, I mean, where does that leave the city? How could you next month approve car wash A, and then the month after that, you got car wash B comes in, then you turn them down?
Well, and it varies. One location may be more appropriate than another location, and the location might lead to certain conditions that you want to impose with that conditional use permit. The idea with the conditional use permit, again, is sort of giving you some flexibility in a sense to allow something, but also implement certain restrictions that will minimize potential adverse impacts from that type of use as well.
The other thing that I think I would throw in, so location would be one way to turn it down, and then the second way to turn it down, which I think is a really good tool in your bucket, is the CUP issue. So like for now, let's say you get a car wash that would petition to come in and they want to be on 27 north of 44, or right north of 44 and south of the Y intersection, up there by Publix. Right now, if that came in, you could say no very easily because there was just a brand new one, like 3 blocks to the south. And second, you could probably say no because we've only got 2 MGD left in our CUP. And that would be a huge impact on 2 MGD left in your CUP. Now, let's say in 5 years, let's say everything in the south side of town is built out and you've got all of that development down there. Now our CUP is at, say, 15 MGD versus 9 MGD. You've got another 10,000, 15,000 people in the city and a whole other corridor in the south side where it's like, yeah, now we might need it. So I think this, I would have said, oh, making a conditional use permit makes me wiggy, but you have both Grant and Dan saying that it's actually in this application is probably a good one that gives you definitive ways to say yes to somebody and no to somebody else.
It gives us two tools. One is the conditional use permit, and the other is the additional code wording that requires specific items such as a study, such as location, not within X number of feet, or something of that nature. We could come up with enough that it would control it, I believe. I believe we could. And we do that now with the donation boxes. If you look in our code, there must be 3 or 4 pages worth of code that restrict donation boxes, because the city had a bad time with those. So we made it into an item where you had to go through a specific set of conditions to make it. And when people come in and look at those, they usually go away.
And I think, too, adding on to that, one of the criteria on the conditional uses, I believe, standard criteria is the number of other conditional uses in the city of that nature. So it's sort of inherent in the decision to approve or not approve one. You're kind of taking a broader look at, whether a large collection of these conditional uses is really appropriate for the city. The idea with the conditional use is that there is no real neat category that it fits in, so we'll allow these depending on the location and depending on whether they can satisfy the conditions in the code.
I'm okay with conditional use permit, but I will go ahead and identify the properties just for discussion purposes. So I'm going to take the example, the new Wawa has a car wash, and there's a car wash right next door that's much more dated. That property is now for sale. That's public information. So I am going to bet that will be redeveloped into something different. The city of Leesburg benefited by a newer, more modern car wash. So I just throw that out there, but I'm okay with conditional use.
I'm okay with conditional use. Everybody's okay? Good to have a motion now?
Don't need to make a motion?
No, I think the general consensus is you'd like to see a change to the land development regulations that makes standalone car washes a conditional use.
Yeah.
And I'll get with Dan on that. Yeah. So that'll need to have a date with the P&Z because it's changed land development regs. Does that go up to the state too?
No, sir. No.
Okay, and then it would come back to you guys. So give us probably a couple months, a month or so for Dan to write it up, then to PZ, then to you. So look for that ordinance sometime in the new year.
Yes, it would go to the January Planning Commission, and then we'd follow it up real quick with City Commission in February.
Dan, get with me. I've got some info. I can probably help with that, so just give me a shout out.
It sounds like the wheel's already been made.
Lastly, I hope to see everyone out on Saturday for the Leesburg Christmas Festival. Starts at 1 with a parade at 6. So that'll be it for me.
Mayor Burry?
Nothing tonight.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.